Living the good fat life with your host Karen and Sherri. They'll help everything.
If I would have got here earlier,
he's trying
for balance for us. Oh. But I had to get my practice in earlier, so
it's okay. It'll spill.
Yeah. Better? Good. This is the first time Donnie's doing it solo, so we got to cut him a little bit of a break.
Yeah. Well, he told me that he is newer, and I thought I would not even know. You seem like you know what you're doing.
He does.
He
does.
So. Yeah. So this is the new building, right? Mm-hmm. It's super nice,
isn't it?
I didn't know.
I can't get your video clip to play in there right now because it's saying it's muted on there. Can I add it in later? Is that fine with you? The music piece?
What the?
Yeah.
Yeah, your song.
Sure.
Oh,
if you want to just point to us when we're ready to talk.
Well, you guys were ready to talk 2 minutes ago.
Oh,
I had it, so.
sure. Okay. Hey.
Hey.
Happy Thursday.
Yeah, it's like they come around so quick, don't they?
I know, time's so weird right now, isn't it?
And we're all here.
We're all here. Yay.
Yeah.
What a great place to be.
Right. And last week on Friday, we had the Black and Bling event with the Heartland Chamber, which was just so cool and so much fun.
Yeah.
And we got to experience our special guests' talents and skills and beauty on Friday. So it was magic.
It really was. And that event is so amazing for the Heartland Chamber and all the women in Heartland. And we were surrounded by so many people in the community and had it at Nature's Gateway, which was amazing. And our guest, Carrie Levy, was our chef, our health and wellness chef. She'll probably call herself something different. But I have to tell you, Carrie, the food was amazing. I mean, it really was. It really was. It was so beautiful and kind of stick to your ribs, made you feel good, but so healthy and light, but still it was very gratifying. So thank you for being here and thank you for doing that. It really made our event so special.
It was really nice to be able to take the time to plan that. And the reason why I think it turned out so well is because I knew that it was for a good cause and I knew that it was based in health. Mm-hmm. So it made it really easy to figure out what I was going to serve everyone. And then I got to kind of nerd out on how healthy I could make it. So,
and that's what I love about you. You're very intentional. So why don't you tell us about what you do and how your intention brought you to that?
Yeah. So I've been with Nature's Gateway since January, and I'm a yoga instructor there, and I teach a couple times a week, and that's basically how I met Karen, and then I met Sherri, mm-hmm. and I have cooked professionally for about 6 years, and I kind of just put it away because I didn't want to prepare food with animals anymore. And I've been a vegetarian for about 12 years. And so I've had a lot of experience doing bigger events and important events, but it was my first time being able to do it all on my own and with the intention that I wanted to. So it was great.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for doing it. And it showed in everything you did. And that's how we felt. And it was sort of like a synergistic thing.
And I got to meet, I keep getting to meet more like-minded people being here in Michigan and out of Nature's Gateway. I mean, if I wasn't at Nature's Gateway, then I wouldn't be here right now. And so it's nice. It's nice having a group.
Well, if I wasn't at Nature's Gateway, you wouldn't be here now either. That's why it's so wonderful. You really do meet the people you're supposed to meet, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So tell us how you about what you do with yoga and what your philosophy is. And where this new issue in April is called Bloom. It's all about spring and blooming back into life after the winter. So why don't you start with how you became a chef and yoga person, then tell us about that spring time and rejuvenation.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just want to be clear again, coming from a place of authenticity within myself. The person that is here right now, it took a really long time to build, and it's not done. I don't believe at all in I only learned so much and then I'm finished. I believe that until you don't exist here, in this dimension, you're a continual student. So I'm really happy now, but there are good days and there are not so good days. But all the time, if you take it as a learning experience and who are your teachers around you, whatever experiences those are, it's really important. So basically, after college, it was while I was in college when I was 18, I became vegetarian. I did yoga, and I know that sounds really funny, but it was the first time out on my own, away from my parents' house. I was able to make more choices for myself. And so the first class that I ever took was a Bikram class, was a hot yoga class. I went with a friend's older sister, and I really got something out of it, but it was very difficult for me. I was
Did
not.
you throw up?
I felt like I could. I felt like I could.
So many people have said, "I just threw up."
Yeah. I mean, I think if you've ever been to a class, it definitely takes something to go back to it.
You're either going to throw up or cry. There's no choice.
Even people that are already athletic, they're like, wow, this is a different kind of workout, so that was kind of my first experience of yoga.
Did you go back?
Not to that place. Not to that place.
No judgment.
Yeah.
Yes. People seem to either love it or just like went once.
Yeah. Honestly, it was kind of like a financial thing because I was a college student and like I couldn't really afford to like be spending $1,000 a month on classes.
Oh wow.
Wow. Yeah. Bikram is a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you, when I first went to my first yoga class, I was very young, but my perception of it was like, I'm just going to feel so chilled out and everything's going to be wonderful. And I'm not going to even move a muscle. But then when your first class is Bikram, were you like, what is this? This is not anything I thought it would be.
It wakes you up. I hadn't heard about it before I experienced it. So I didn't have any like preconceived notions of what it was supposed to be. And I think that's helpful. But I took a few classes at the recreation center. I went to the University of Kansas. And so I was able to go there with some like passes, being a student. And then afterwards, I graduated from there, have a degree in anthropology and peace and conflict studies. So I've always been really interested in like,
that's fascinating.
What makes people tick? Yeah. Like why people choose to do the things they do. I guess so. It's a social psychology, but anyhow, I didn't know what I wanted to do afterwards, and there was a long period of time where I was really unhappy because I felt like I should know, and I didn't. And through all of that and any sort of really difficult times, yoga continually was a place that, it's inside of you. You go somewhere, you can have somebody lead you through it, or you can do it on your own. And it helped me with depression. It helped me with anxiety. I was athletic my entire life, played soccer, ran, danced, did all of that. And it wasn't the same thing. The like mental component, the spiritual component, it just really provided the outlet that I needed for self-regulation because I did not have that before.
I totally understand that. I struggled pretty much up until a few years ago. What is my purpose? What is my passion? But yoga was always there. And then I finally had this eureka moment where like my purpose and passion is to help other people with their purpose and passion. That is what I do. So yoga really does help you kind of work that stuff out.
It does. I mean, that's the thing is it is a practice. We get this idea of what a perfect pose is because, you see the ultimate or the final version of something that might take years in a making on Instagram or Facebook, which, honestly, I've had that stuff before. I don't have it now.
Mm-hmm.
I feel great. If I really want to talk with someone, if I really want to hang out with someone, they know how to get a hold of me. I know how to get a hold of them.
Mm-hmm. Did you feel like that was more ego rather than yoga?
Well, we bring back up like the cooking stuff. Mm-hmm. So I was very into cooking. I mean, really, really into it. I had like zero downtime and I had an Instagram account and I used that for all my plating, like all my dishes. And when things kind of started to turn around for me because I was like, this isn't really my vision, it needs to be something greater or whatever, I started getting feeling jaded, like feeling like looking at all these other Instagram accounts that I am taking in their information. It's like I don't want to see that anymore because I don't feel that. And you have to be
interesting
real with yourself because it's like you don't want to turn away what's hard or difficult. You want to take it in, you want to work through it. But ultimately I decided that
it wasn't authentic.
I didn't really need it,
There's a balance there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So to be inspired by others, to grow.
Right.
And but not to become other stuff.
Because I could be, I'm scrolling through this stuff. That's taking time and energy away from something else I could be doing.
Right.
I mean, I think it's not like get rid of your stuff, but just be more mindful about
less pollution.
Right. Yeah.
And so I took the 200-hour yoga course as well. And I really realized how much it affected my life in many, many ways. And it really does add to your authenticity. So I was wondering, tell us about, so you go from I'm starting to learn my intention. You're doing yoga. You're starting to realize I don't need like the social media aspect. So how do you move into how do people treat you differently? How do you move into that space, being off social media, and how do people respond to that?
So honestly, I'm not a person that has a million friends. It's not about the quantity; it is the quality, 100%. And I think I had this habit of wanting to hang on to some relationships like friendships because you build up these relationships and they mean something to you, but I've also learned like through yoga that there's times and there's moments in life and like you always have to be in the moment. When you're in the moment, then there's no room for additional worry and stress, and you kind of just have to let things be as they are. It's that non-attachment thing. I mean, it's really real. So you just appreciate what you have, the gift that you have, the people they come in and out of your life because you will do the same with other people, and you have to allow other people space and people have to allow space for you to be you.
And also you have to be intuitive for your students, right? When they come in,
Totally.
They might think they need something else, or they might start right away like, I'm not good at yoga, or they're, yay, we won yoga, that kind of thing. How do you handle that?
So because I've been at Nature's Gateway for a couple of months now, we've had a lot of different people come in. There's some people that know exactly the type of yoga that they like. And that is good. They continue to come back. Most of them, we have people that are complete beginners. We have people that have practiced for a really long time. Um, and the way that I craft my classes, I have 2 different classes right now. I'm working on a third. I could go crazy with how many different class types there are that I could provide. But in terms of how do I work with others, um, having a smaller group of people is actually easier because I can tailor it better than if I had a large amount of people. That's not to say that I don't want to be in, a large crowd in the future. But what we learn in our 200, RYT is that you have everything inside of you that works for you and that you've learned and that you may be good at, but it's about meeting the students where they are. And so being very mindful of, it's easy to see when somebody is going through their movement, how they are. Like, I think it's Krishna Acharya, he talks about like, well, the movement in yoga is how you go about life. And it's honestly true. So, like, if somebody can be patient with themselves, is willing to learn, is willing to break things down, or, sometimes there's students that come in and the class isn't what they expect it to be. And they don't really care for it because they already know a particular variation and they want just that and they want to repeat it. But unfortunately, you're not growing, you're not learning anything new that could be really beneficial for you. Because what yoga does is open up new spaces. It breaks patterns and repetitive behavior, thought, emotion, all of that.
And it always finds you right where you are, right? Always.
Yeah.
And I don't know if people know this. I don't know if you learn this in your class, but really most of those yoga poses that you see in books and stuff, those are by dancers. They're not even really by yogis because they have the flex. A lot of those pictures are really not even yogis. So that's like a really different standard that people try to.
Yes and no, because, you have people that are models that pose for clothes that want to say, this is our yoga brand. So there's that. But there's also like what's really interesting about the dancing and gymnastics is like a little tidbit of history here is there is a lot to be learned about what the first ever yoga poses actually looked like and how they were performed because there are so many different variations and there are so many manuscripts. How were they interpreted? There's so that's interesting, but you also have this ancient temple, I think it's called Myanmar. They were really well known for all their special gymnasts and gymnastics, and that evolved into some interesting and complicated postures, totally different and later into the century than in the very beginning, which we term postures as asana. It's not really correct unless you're talking about seated postures, because asana translates to seat or sit, and they're talking about meditative seats. So in the beginning, it was meditative, and as you travel along, it became more intricate, and it turned into tapas, which is standing. And one pose on its own would be practiced for years.
My favorite is the corpse pose.
Yes, it's great.
I had the opportunity to go to India a couple years ago and to Recognition.
And yes, I know what you're talking about.
The birthplace of yoga.
Yeah.
And I got to swim in the Ganga River.
No way.
And be in the ashrams. And it was, and I'm not a big yoga person. It's something that I'm so curious about. But it was, to your point there, it was a very different experience.
So I actually had looked a long time ago at a yoga retreat there.
Yeah.
And I was drawn to that area because, tell me if this is correct or not, it's a non-meat eating, non-drinking province, right?
Correct. There's no alcohol and there's no meat. It was, that was interesting. But there's cows walking around everywhere.
How were the people? How was their disposition different there?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, I don't know. It was also different and new, and it's high up in the Himalayas, so it's stunningly beautiful.
Wow.
And you've got this massive river running right through the middle of the town. And it's very simple, but yeah, there's cows everywhere, and people, and they ride these motorcycles on the street. So you have a street that's as wide as the studio, and you've got people and cows and motorcycles and shops and
Oh
is
my God.
And it all just sort of works together.
But that was, Karen, I think that was one of the beauty of, India in general, but this place in particular is it works.
Yeah.
It just all works. Everybody, excuse me, everybody just kind of comes, and the meals are very simple, and we had to bus our own tables, and there was no talking during the meal.
Oh, how
hall.
awesome.
Yeah.
But yet you couldn't wait for mealtime.
Yeah.
It was,
Yeah.
and we're
Yeah.
social by nature.
Right.
But the other part, it was just a beautiful experience.
So is if you don't mind me asking, is that like every place you went to eat, basically? Like they just practiced this non-speech during mealtime?
This was in the ashram.
Oh, in the
So
ashram.
in the
Okay.
ashram, there was
Right.
people would come, like you're saying,
Okay.
you would come for a week
Right.
and have the experience. And there was the bathrooms there's no showers or anything, so you had to turn on the water. To get a bucket to take
Yeah.
to bathe. And
Very humbling
it
experience,
was.
I suppose.
It's so, and there was no internet. They would turn on the Wi-Fi an hour a day, and so people would.
That sounds so wonderful.
I know, yeah.
But it's really interesting.
She's gonna pack her bag.
It's really interesting how our society is so hyper, and
Right.
and connected, or Wi-Fi, if you will, or there's
Yeah.
lots of-
Yeah.
and to be in that space, there's an adjustment too.
Mhm.
But if you think about the first time we all ate as human beings, it was silent, and it was the most beautiful experience of our entire life. The first
True.
intimate experience with another human.
Yeah. Being inside the womb.
Oh, yeah.
And when
Oh,
you're born,
yeah,
your
yeah.
first time
Yeah.
you ever eat is in silence
Yeah.
with your mother or your father,
yeah.
mostly your mother. And that's the most beautiful. I remember feeding my child for the first time. It's the most beautiful experience you'll ever have. So I can imagine that's what it feels like not to speak when you eat.
Yeah. And it really is a focus around the food.
Unless you need a
Focus
Heimlich,
on the
of course.
food.
if you-
Yeah. Food for nourishment, probably not just I'm going to pig out or this is a crazy delicious meal, but that goes along the
It's
Anamaya
intentional.
kosha,
Right.
which we talked about a little bit at your
Mhm.
guys' event.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I know a little bit. I'm going to be very honest. Like I'm a student here. I'm learning. I take continued education courses. But what I've learned about the Anamaya kosha is basically it's this verse, and it talks about how food is God. And when I say God, and when the text says God, they refer to God as Brahman. The translation of Brahman is the infinite knowledge beyond time, beyond space. It's not religious. It's not this man or woman or deity or anything. It's about the energy that connects us all and that feeds us. And so it talks about how prana, energy, life force, is cast into us during the time of birth. And we always have that energy with us. How do we maintain that energy? Because if it is not maintained, then that's when disease, discomfort, things like that take place. It's your body speaking to you. But the Anamaya Kosha speaks on how food is energy, how food should be treated as nourishment for the vital life force, and how we ourselves are food, how, we'll transcend and we'll go back into the earth. It's interesting to think
Yeah,
about.
it really is. Yeah.
And and when to that to, when you and that was one of the most beautiful things about the meal you prepared. And I'm so glad we took pictures because it was
It was
just so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I want to hear more about that and about this bottle that you've brought. So
Yeah.
Oh,
your
yeah.
kombucha.
Totally.
But I was going to say just the presence of it and the beauty of it and the energy of it. Um, and that was one thing too at the ashram is that the food, because you're not talking to people, and we were hungry, right? We didn't snack. We ate 3 meals a day.
Right.
We were excited. We're like, is it time to eat?
Yeah.
But the food was so beautifully and lovingly prepared and tasty.
Right.
Right. And simple at the same time.
Yeah.
It's very, very simple.
That special energy
Right.
that was put into the food because whoever was making it, I think, they probably are working on their own energy. And like, actually, it's interesting because my first ever cooking job, I took a breakfast shift, and there's this kid, and he was like a waiter, and he'd always eat all my food. And he was like, what do you do to this? He's like, it tastes different than everybody else's, and it looks better. And I go, love.
Yeah, I was
It's
gonna
a
say,
secret
it's made with love,
ingredient.
right?
And it's
Yeah.
true though. That's
That is
why
true.
your mom's or your
That's
grandma's
cute.
or your
Yeah.
aunt's food,
Yeah.
it tastes different.
My kids always say I cook with too much love and salt.
Salt is delicious.
So, speaking of like cooking and the doshas and sort of like we go back into the earth and we're all part of it. In the winter, things are sort of dying and we feel like everything's death. And in the magazine, we're talking about bloom and self-care now. So could you talk to us about how important the winter time is and then move us into how we have to look at spring?
Sure. Okay. So, it took some time to think about this. And when it came to me, because I knew it was in here, I just needed to pull it out. And so sometimes during winter, people will use it as a restful hibernation, possibly, or time to work on themselves. Um, Sometimes not. So, and I'm not going to put anybody into categories, but maybe we have people that have already been working on themselves, have been exercising, doing things to stay healthy. Maybe we have people that are not like that, or we have a mixture. And I would say that, spring represents this time of renewal. We're seeing plants pop up. The sun is coming out. We want to be out more. Um, Nature is no matter what temperament, what weather it is always the best teacher because you see the way that the plants behave, that the animals behave, how they take care. That's it's cool to watch. But I would say that even though it could be, um, you know, maybe you want to do things differently because of the weather change. I would just say look at what you've built for yourself during the cold months. What was it that you were taking time on for yourself? How were you building your energy? Because you don't want to just shut that out and put it away and say, I'll come back to it again next winter. It's how do I keep on adding, layering to what I have already built? So say like, later on, maybe restrictions lift off or whatever, friends, they want to get together, do something, but you would kind of like reserve this time for yourself to like go on that hike or walk or whatever. And you're like, what do I do here? Because of course, I want to be social, but I also want to be healthy. I would just caution, like, don't not do things for yourself. Don't give up on self-care. because if you don't have self-care, then it's just not a good way to go about the world. It doesn't have to be 5 hours a day. I mean, it can be anything that you want it to be. It's just taking time for some mindfulness that is for you, and it's not for anybody else. Because how are you supposed to have room for anyone else if you don't have room for yourself?
Yeah. And in each season, you're supposed to have movement and sleep and nutrition in every season. It just depends on how the modalities of it, depending on the season. Right.
But that's one of the cool things about living in the seasons.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So if for zones where it's like the same all day long, you don't get that variability.
Right. And I guess that's another thing. I mean, winter, the foods, like you said, are a little bit different. Spring, obviously, you have all this like bounty. So you do want to try to eat seasonally and locally. And I know that that's not always doable, or it's expensive or something like that. But it's about being more connected with nature and where you are at presently. So if you can have carrots because they're coming up around this time, that makes sense. You're more energetically connected, right? Than, I don't know, a butternut squash or something,
So you're saying like the earth shows us what is going to give us the most nutrition and energy as it changes.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you can also grow some of your own stuff. So it's not to say that you can't have herbs year round or greens or anything, because honestly, I ate more greens this winter than I ever have in my life. And I feel like it really did me good, because I was growing microgreens and sprouts and that sort of thing.
So so those are some things that in your food, you had what, sprouted lentils?
Yeah, so I had red and blue sprouted lentils.
And it was just delicious. So tell us about the drink.
Okay, yeah. Right? So this drink, my gardening boss and we got these scobies last year. SCOBY, for you guys that don't know what it stands for, it's also referred to as mother, but it's a symbiotic colony of bacteria and yeast. It's very good for your gut. There's a lot of different brands and styles out there. I say try them, see what you like. But my boss had been doing a lot.
Can I ask you a question? So you keep saying gardening boss. What does that mean?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So my friend John. So when the season is right, I do some gardening.
Oh, gotcha.
I actually just did some yesterday.
Okay, so you work for somebody that's a gardener.
But he's a really great friend. And so anyway, he has a whole room now dedicated to these SCOBY motels. I'm not kidding. Actually, he helped make vinegar for the miso dressing that went in.
That was delicious.
That went into that salad.
Good Fat Life, just to say, it's a whole article on vinegars. This last one.
I read that.
And there's a Vinegar Institute, which it's like it's been around since time began.
It's fermentation.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Right.
So basically, him and we decided, let's try out teas, because I love herbs and I love tea. And at Nature's Gateway, they sell arbor teas. And arbor teas, I don't know a lot about them, but I have tasted 2 different varieties now. They're out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I said, okay, let's try the mango rubios. And it's delicious. It's really delicious. So,
are you guys thinking about selling these, or you just make them for yourself?
I tell him that he needs to. I say, go to the farmer's market. This is amazing. You can make candies out of SCOBY, and even though it's candy, it's still like, again, the intention and your body, your energy knows that. Yeah. And it's about creativity.
It is. And my dad is a big kombucha maker in Oregon, and he sent me a SCOBY, and through Amazon.
Wow.
And a crock. And it's so easy to make, and it's so much fun.
Yeah. Is it kind of like the sourdough bread that everybody adds to? Kind of like
the starter.
Yeah, the starter.
Is it kind of like that?
Kind of. Yeah. And at first it was like, this is disgusting. But it really isn't.
It's very different looking because, I mean, the thing is though, is it's living. And after you get used to it, it's like, this is alive. It's raw.
Yeah.
That's what
it's like my cat.
Plus, it might think we're gross if it's alive. It might have a bad opinion of us. Yeah.
Right.
Plus, Gobi Hotel sounds like a really good band name.
It does. Yeah, you have to be really careful because everything's got to be sanitized, like with vinegar, and you gotta keep it safe because otherwise you don't, and stuff can grow. But that's also like the feeding part of it. It's cool because it creates its own like antimicrobial, properties going on in there. So.
Which is what makes it so good for your gut.
Yeah. And you also work with mushrooms. Mushrooms we're in. And I'm obsessed with mushrooms and the entangled life and all about mushrooms. I can't get enough of learning about mushrooms. Tell us about the mushrooms in the dish.
Yeah. Okay. So I have two things to say. Again, if you can't tell, I'm really big into supplements, anything that you can add to your meal or whatever. So there's this supplement brand. It's called Host Defense, and they sell it at Nature's Gateway. They sell it at a lot of natural food stores, and it's blends of different strains of mushrooms. There's a stress and adaptability one that I take, and then there's one for the nervous system and cognition. And so I take it like that, but I also eat a lot of mushrooms. The mushrooms that were in the dish, those were maitake. The maitakes were sourced from the Granary. It's this organic grocery store in Flint, Michigan. And they wanted to sell me like 3 pounds of it. And I was like, oh, that's awesome, but I don't need that much. But it's really cool because I learned the smoking technique. That's what gave it that flavor from my boyfriend's dad's friend who has a place farther up north, and he's got the crabapple trees. So he uses that wood. So I use that wood. He made me these little packets, dried wood and then some raw wood. And then you smoke it in the grill. And then I season the mushrooms with tamari and lime and toasted sesame oil and my special blend of peppercorns and Himalayan sea salt. And honestly, I would say maybe a half an hour total of setting everything up and smoking. And they actually are even more delicious the day after because they've like really been marinating. And I do marinate them for about an hour before I put them on. So
they were delicious.
Oh my gosh, the whole meal tasted so intentional and beautiful. And as you describe what you put into it, it's like when I was eating it, I was like, I want to hurry up and eat this. Is so good, but no, I want it to last forever. It's like like you just want to consume art or something. That's
and the other thing too, when I saw the menu, I'm like, oh, I should eat before. Right. I mean, I'm a meat eater, right. And so, but the day was crazy and I didn't get to eat anything before. And I only ate like half, maybe a third of what was prepared because it was so filling as well.
Yeah.
And delicious. And it was like, damn.
Well, you kind of forget. You forget about the meat. Like, that's the thing is, how do you go about preparing stuff? Because, when I first became vegetarian, I really didn't eat that much meat before, but I realized how much I did consume when I had to start eating.
Putting in
and I think that's really kind of also what sparked the creativity with cooking, because I was eating out of a student food hall.
Right.
And I had to really figure out how to cook for myself. Nobody else in my family was like that. And to be quite honest, I would say that really only recently is my lifestyle a little bit more respected, because there's this idea that you can only get proteins from particular things or energy, and it's not my area of expertise. I want to go into nutrition. I want to go into naturopathy work. But a lot of the studies out there, like, you do a good job. You live a long time when you eat more plants and more living things. And that's the thing too, is sometimes there's this argument, or if somebody wants to push a button and say, well, you're killing vegetables, you're killing fruit. And it's like, okay, well, there's a monk, I think it's Thich Nhat Hanh, which I have a poem here by him. He says that no matter what, once again, you're always consuming life. You drink water. There's life in that. There's microbes in it. It's just, again, about what you're choosing to do.
How much collateral the life,
and also beings with our consciousness, like, how are we choosing to honor that, and with the information that we know, and you don't have to go cutting out everything or just being really strict. It's just about figuring out, what you can do. And I mean, that's the thing though too, is Taryn at Nature's Gateway, she talks about like blood type diets. And I'm very interested in that, because let's say even if you did want to be vegetarian or vegan, maybe there's something in your system that says you really need something.
That's how I'm wired. And so
I mean,
I think it's so important that it's be respectful of because we're all different.
Right. Exactly.
And Sherri, you shared this with me before, that you're taking time to have a blessing for all the things that came into bringing you your food. And that's important too, right? Everything that went into it. Yeah.
And when you stop and think about, just a plate of whatever, an egg, an egg. I had an egg and broccoli the other day, and I'm looking at that and I'm like, what went into that being on my plate?
Yeah, that's so good.
Right. Yeah. And an avocado and some spicy sauce or something, but it's just how many thousands of people and then nature, light and rain and all of that stuff, and had to show up in order to have that happen to land on my leg.
You're talking about the Anamaya Kosha and the elements and the earth and
and all of it, and the people and the distribution and the pan and the it goes on and on, and I think that at the end of the day, if we can stop and be mindful, just for a moment, it really changes everything.
Right.
But the Anamana Kosha and the mana and the things we talk about on here, they're in everything, and we have to be aware of it, right? So would you like to share the poem that you brought?
Yeah. Okay.
And then we could talk for days.
Yeah. We could. Okay. So this is by Thich Nhat Hanh. He's a really famous monk, especially during the Vietnamese War. So this is pretty emotional, and I will do my best to keep steady here. Okay. Don't say that I will depart tomorrow. Even today, I am still arriving. Look deeply. Every second, I'm arriving to be a bud on a spring branch, to be a tiny bird with still fragile wings, learning to sing in my new nest, to be a caterpillar in the heart of a flower, to be a jewel hiding itself in a stone. I still arrive in order to laugh and to cry, to fear and to hope. The rhythm of my heart is the birth and death of all that is alive. I am a mayfly metamorphizing on the surface of the river, and I am the bird that swoops down to swallow the mayfly. I am a frog swimming happily in the clear water of a pond, and I am the grass snake that silently feeds itself on the frog. I am the child in Uganda, all skin and bones, my legs as thin as bamboo sticks. And I am the arms merchant selling deadly weapons to Uganda. I am a 12-year-old girl, refugee on a small boat, who throws herself into the ocean after being raped by a sea pirate. And I am also the pirate, my heart not yet capable of seeing and loving. I am a member of the Politburo, with plenty of power in my hands, and I am the man who has to pay his debt of blood to my people dying slowly in a forced labor camp. My joy is like spring, so warm it makes flowers bloom all over the earth. My pain is like a river of tears, so vast it fills the 4 oceans. Please call me by my true names, so I can hear all my cries and laughter at once, so I can see that my joy and pain are one. Please call me by my true names, so I can wake up at the door of my heart, could be left open, the door of compassion. Oh, it's really beautiful.
It is.
And,
Thank you.
It says a lot. It says a lot too about when we talk about yoga and what Sherri was speaking about, how respecting all of our individual needs and differences. That's what I like to teach yoga, with that idea that everyone is different. So specific poses for me might not be the same that are needed for you or you. And
but thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being so vulnerable. And that poem also speaks to how we're all the same and how we can't judge. We can't judge the pull-up barrel. We can't judge the arms here. We can't even judge the positive things. Could you just be aware?
It's clear perception. And I did that because I want to, everyone sharing and working on emotions, what's acceptable, what's not. We just all need to be a little bit more vulnerable with one another. We need to provide space for one another.
And kind. Well, that deep and happy and
and lovely.
Yeah. Lovely.
What can someone that's listening today, what can they take to start? What would your advice be to them?
So with all of that in mind, again, possibly you were already doing work over the winter or maybe not. So when you're transitioning, whether you do something at home or you like to get out, again, I always say get out into nature if you can, because it is a different kind of energy. And the more time that you spend in the outdoors, I think the healthier and more connected with yourself that you become. So I say if you're just starting out, don't try to aim for, this complete athlete, Olympic gold medal. That's not realistic.
Right.
So again, you have to say, where am I at right now? Start with walking. Start with mindful walking. Maybe put on some of your tunes that you like, or just no device, and then from there, okay, maybe you want to make it more dynamic. This is what I practice all the time. What are functional movements that I can incorporate into what I'm doing, whether it's biking, running, walking, yoga. So it's like, how is my gaze? How is my hand? How is my wrists? How is my neck? How is my head movement? My legs? So walking backwards, and that actually builds strength.
Right.
Running, jogging backwards. How can I use my arms while I'm walking, while I'm running?
Right.
And actually, the more time that you take to focus on each individual part of your body, I find that this helps with your prana and balancing very much so. So again, you don't have to make it, I work out 2 hours every day. It can be 20 minutes. It can be 30 minutes. Maybe you don't even want to do that. Maybe you want to meditate. But I honestly feel that sometimes helping to balance your energy and movement before meditation.
It's both.
But it's different for everyone. With yoga, maybe you've been doing yoga for a really long time. Okay, you're good at it. But what is it that you're really seeking? I like to think that we're really seeking ourselves. We're seeking our connection with ourselves and to whatever else is out there. So how can I make it more dynamic? How can I make it more creative? Maybe that requires me going and checking out some different literature or media or something. That requires me to grow. So I just think that wherever you are at, it doesn't need to be the same routine all the time. So when I'm out biking or running or whatever, I like to now go on different paths every day. It's not the same thing every day because it's about breaking up these habitual patterns.
Yeah. And it's about
going and introducing something new.
Yes.
You know?
So get outside,
creating new space,
follow your own paths, honor where you've come from, and just start today.
Yeah, because it's right now. If we keep pushing it off, like when is it ever going to happen? And when you actually do what it is that you want to do, no matter how long it was, it's the intention behind it. It is the effort that you put into it. And that is priceless because you have had these thoughts or these intentions and you're manifesting it. And that is worth more than anything else.
Be your own creator and bloom. And thank you for being here today and bringing your intention and your passion and being here in the moment. We really appreciate it.
And so if somebody wants to learn more about you or find you, how would they do that?
Yeah. Okay. So like I said, I'm not on social media, but I do teach 3 times a week at Nature's Gateway, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursday evenings. And
they're in Heartland, Michigan.
Yeah. Yes, Heartland, Michigan. My email is my first and last name together. It's CARRIELEAVEY 532@gmail.com. And my phone number, I'm fine with texts or phone calls, whatever. It's 913-972-7461.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And guys, don't forget to look up www.com, Good Fat Life Magazine, and click on subscribe for our new Bloom issue in April.
Yeah, it's coming. So
lots of good recipes and everything.
Helping us bloom today.
Yeah. So it's great.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you guys.
Yes.